I'll give you this one tip, which I shouldn't. You want to keep your credit cards between 1 and 10%. This is important to understand this, 1 to 10%. Meaning most people say, oh, I charge it up and then pay it down to 0. You have to keep some activity on that. So 1% keeps the activity, and then 10%, you never go over that. That's where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck on your credit scores.
All right, we're live. Let's go. You ready?
Let's
say hello, man.
What's up, y'all? What's up? What is up?
Mr. Carl.
You did ask me how my energy was about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, I walked in, I was like, how you feeling, man? You feeling good?
In my mind, it's like, where are we go? Where are we doing this interview?
You know what's crazy? This is episode number 93 of the Closer Club.
That's saying a lot about you. Pretty
dude,
cool.
Consistency, baby. Consistency. This is like my 5th meeting on the day we were talking about energy off camera.
Yep.
So, dude, I want to thank you. I know I met you a few months ago when at that event for the shrimp tank.
Bobby Castro.
With Bobby Castro, who we have mutually in common. Bobby's a phenomenal guy. And one of the things I really wanted to have you on the show about was to talk about credit repair. I think 90%, not to say 90%, but a high percentage of our deals as realtors involve financing. And a lot of times the buyers aren't approved, not because of the property not getting appraised, but because the buyer's not getting approved. Before we get started, let me do my introduction. Hello, everybody. My name's Alex Vidal. I am president of Related ISG International Realty and host of the show you're watching today, episode number 93 of the Closer Club, rocking and rolling, 93 weeks in a row. And today we have one of the country's foremost experts on credit repair, Credit Carl. All right, brother. You ready?
Appreciate you, brother.
All right, so you're a Philly guy. Just moved down to Miami.
Suburbs of Philly,
Suburbs.
There's a difference.
What brought you down? Let's start there.
The business kind of plateaued. So, for being honest, I was in a situation where we were about a year and a half with the same revenue. Didn't move, and I heard somebody by the name of Albert Einstein say, nothing changes until something moves. Now, I'm not a scholar, but that really resonated with me. And I'm like, okay, I kind of built my brand, this company, my brand, Credit Carl, in that local area. In Philadelphia, the suburbs, Delaware, New Jersey, people knew me and my company, and we improved credit scores. But it was just, it kind of plateaued, and I couldn't figure it out. What am I doing wrong? How do I get my revenue to the next level? One of our core values up there is profit. If you don't have a business that's, growing and there's profit, the revenue's not increasing, you might as well turn the lights off and your competition just blew right by you. So I felt like I was just spinning my wheels, and that's how I decided to make this move. This move was really, how do I get new energy, new people, new ideas, a new city, new sales team, new office, and man, let's go at this and let's do something different than what we were doing in Philadelphia.
And what I love about this is his new office is literally 2 blocks. I walked here from my office, and I know we're going to be spending a lot more time together now that you're in the Aventura hood.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's break it down. Let's start off very simple. What exactly is credit repair, and how does it work?
One of my old business partners used to like the word credit enhancement.
Okay.
Repair has this kind of negative connotation a little bit. So I like enhancement. That's what we do. We raise credit scores. We were on the phone with a customer earlier, and she's like, I'm sorry, why would I pay you X amount of dollars? It's because what we're experts at doing are raising credit scores. And that's the name of the game. If you're in the real estate business or you're in the mortgage business, the difference between maybe getting approved and not getting approved is points, right? A lot of the times. The mortgage guy might need a 580 or a 620, and we have the answers to that test. We know how to take 550 and turn it into 620, or we know how to turn a 620 credit score and turn it into 680. That's what we do. We turn unapproved customers into approved.
Great. So 2 questions. One is, how do you do it? And the other question, you brought up something, credit enhancers. What if somebody already has a 700 credit score? Do you work on those people that already have excellent credit on getting them up even more?
Yeah, something called the 800 Club. That was one of the first things when I started doing social media, right? I built my brand on Facebook Live, by the way, and we started wearing these hats, the 800 Club, because credit scores range from 300 to 850. So there's a ton of room for improvement. You get these people that are what I would call credit cocky, right? They got that 700 score. They're like so confident in the score. And you're like, wait a sec.
I like
your
it.
score's a 700. I mean, you got 150 points room for improvement. Sure. Now, I've only seen the highest FICO score. By the way, FICO is the Fair Isaac company, been around since 1952. It's not what you see on Credit Karma or credit, like these fake scores that you see. The highest FICO score I've ever seen is 842. That's it. That's the highest one I've ever seen. So, but there's a lot of room for improvement. You got 700. It's how do you get it 800 plus? How do you get that elusive 800 club?
So, what are some of the things you do to raise the people's credit?
Well, most credit repair companies, right, just send letters out. So they like to work with the clients that are very vanilla. They fit in this square box. They find 5 collection accounts. They send letters out. A couple of the collection accounts come off. That's all they do.
Got it.
With us, coaching, accountability, right? So what we find success is, one, we'll break down the credit report and say, besides sending out collection accounts, how else can we improve the credit scores? What else can we do? How can we coach? How can we solve the riddle of their credit cards? Do they need more of them? Did they need to pay them down? Did they need to get off of a credit card? Sure. Did they need to pay a vehicle off? Whatever that is, right? Because there's an algorithm. We know the algorithm. Through trial and error, we figured it out. And then we coach them. And then we hold them accountable, right? So the first call is, hey, this is Coach Tony or Coach Heather, we're working on, and we need you to do X, Y, and Z. And then what happens, Alex? A week later, 2 weeks later, hey, how'd you make out with X, Y, and Z? Not good. Okay, just so you know, everything's held up right now. So holding the customer's hand, holding them accountable, and giving them real blueprint action there's not a lot of credit repair. I don't know any credit repair company that does that. They just send letters out and that's it. So the coaching piece is different.
So what are some of the biggest misnomers that you hear out on the street about when people hear the word credit repair?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, look, some of the big names out there, look them up on the Better Business Bureau. They have no rating, they have 500 complaints, and all they do is send letters out. So it's like, oh, how long are you going to take my money for? 12 months, 18 months, 24 months? It's like this sending these credit repair companies money and you have no clue where the end is. Okay. And the problem with that is because they only have one game plan. That ties back into what I was just saying. If your only game plan as a credit repair company, which by the way, they seem to be popping up everywhere right now. I'm in Miami, everyone's a part-time credit guy. They learned about, this is interesting. The credit guys that are popping up right now, they learned how to sell credit repair, and they learned the credit repair space in like a weekend. Somebody I've been doing this for 20 years. Yeah. Like I looked at over 70,000 credit reports. There's a lot of times when we first started, Alex, that we gave the client advice and the scores went down.
Got it.
So
what are some small, let's talk about this. What are some small things people can do to just make sure that their credit not only remains great, but they can even raise their credit scores? I've heard closing credit cards that you don't do are not necessarily good. So talk to me. If I have credit cards I'm not using, should I use them a little bit and pay them? Should I just go ahead and close them out? What are some things people can do to just get some boost and add some points to this?
Yeah, one of the simple things, let's say your credit's already good, ask for a simple line increase. Okay, so it's one of the things that people overlook a lot. For example, if you have like Citizens, and Citizens has a $10,000 credit limit. Okay, it's a very easy thing to call Citizens up and say, hey, I'm going to go somewhere else unless you give me $15,000 or $20,000, because the more available credit you have, the higher your credit scores are going to go. It's one of the tricks we teach on how to get into that 800 club. Raise the credit limits up as high as possible.
So let's say you have a $10,000 credit limit, you raise it to $15,000, right? Now you're not spending up to the 15. Is there a trick to that?
There's the misconceptions. People are like, I don't want more debt. It's actually not more debt. So if you had a $10,000 credit limit and your balance with Citizens was $2,000, your utilization is 20%, right? Now they just increased it up to $15,000 and utilization went under 20%. It's even better. So it's not you take $15,000 to spend $15,000. You still want to manage those credit cards between 30% and 10%.
Got it.
And in an ideal world, I'll give you this one tip, which I shouldn't. You want to keep your credit cards between 1 and 10%. This is important to understand this, 1 to 10%. Meaning most people say, oh, I charge it up and then pay it down to 0. You have to keep some activity on that. So 1% keeps the activity, and then 10%, you never go over that. That's where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck on your credit scores.
So what about people who, like I know I have a credit card that I never use. It's just sitting there. I'm sure at some point they're going to go ahead and close it out because it never gets used. Should I leave it like that, or should I go ahead and at least, even if it's buying a coffee at Starbucks and then just paying it, what should I do with that?
So if you look at the FICO pie chart, it's 15% of the credit score is based on the length of your credit history. So that credit card that you're talking about that's like maybe 10 years old, you're like, I don't really use it, I'm going to close it out, that would lower your scores. So if you have that older credit card that's 15 years old, that thing's an asset on your credit report. You want to keep that thing on there. You don't want to close it down.
Okay.
Okay.
What are some other things that people can do to help, keep their credit going and even bust it, pump it up a little bit?
Really get it to the next level. I mean, the line increases. You want to act as if your credit cards are, whatever the credit limit is really 10%. So for that example,
perfect.
Right? $10,000, 10%.
You got a $1,000 limit.
$1,000. I stink at math. He's good at it. You want to act like $1,000 is your credit limit. I'll give you a quick example. I had a very high-powered attorney that came to me. She had one Neiman Marcus credit card that was just $2,500 credit limit. That was her only credit card, no other credit cards. And what she used to do is charge that card up like $2,000. When she got the bill, she'd pay it to zero. So in her mind, she said, I don't have balance on that card. But when we looked at the credit report, her balance was $2,000. She charged it up, she paid it. So the secret for her is, how do you take the $2,500, 10% is $250. Yep. You're not going to spend more than $250 for the next 60 days. And then what Neiman's going to do is say, you want a little bit more, now you can spend $2,500 a month if your credit limit is $15,000. Yeah. Then you're okay, then you can play that game, right? So you got to take one step backwards to move 5 forward.
Now let's talk about somebody, the flip side, somebody who's just starting out. I have a 22-year-old son. He's got good credit. If he wants to build his credit, what are some things that the younger generation can do to help build their credit a little bit?
Add them as an authorized user.
Okay.
So you can start to add them to your credit cards that you're doing good. So if you look at your credit card situation, if you have a card that has age on it, like 10 plus years, and you're under 30% or 10%, I say 30%, 20%, 10%, you're under those balances, and you don't plan on spending money, like it's not like a lot of realtors have like a $20,000 card and they do flips on it and they charge it up and until the money comes in on the flip, they don't pay that down. That's not a good card to add your kid to. But if you truly keep it under 30%, there's a good pay history, that's a great card to say, hey, I'd like to add my son to that. Right?
What about the prepaid credit cards? I've heard a lot about that. Do those work that build credit too?
It's a good way to build. Yeah, it's a good way to build. Right. Yeah, they're called secured cards. So you got to be careful, right? If you don't have any credit cards, this is why really hooking up with a credit repair company and knows what they're doing. It's funny, I'll give these presentations to realtors and loan officers, and they take the information and run with it, and I'm like, you got 1% of what I just told you. But with the unsecured credit cards or the secured credit cards where you hand your money, that's still a game. Like what we teach our customers how to play is chess, not checkers. So you could say, hey, I'm a realtor and I'm just going to tell this person to go out and get a secured credit card. I don't need a credit repair company. Here's the problem with that. 8 out of 10 of those companies are going to turn you down. They still, even if you handed the bank the money, they're still looking at your credit cards and judging you.
Got it.
So it's about picking the right bank that's not looking at your credit scores. It's saying, we'll take your $200, but let me go one step further. A lot of the time, somebody with bad credit can get unsecured credit cards. That's the benefit of knowing the right credit repair company is, why don't you keep the $200, and if we can find a company that'll give you $200 unsecured to start building your credit, we're winning.
There you go. So you brought up a lot about realtors. What's some of the work, or what are some of the opportunities for realtors to really get a bump in their business?
And I love realtors. The foundation of this company, loan officers and realtors that send us business. So I love them. I built my company off of them. How can they? What was the question? How can
realtors boost their business using a company like yours?
I mean, they're leaving money on the table, right? I mean, they worked their butt off. Whatever they did, whether they did Facebook on a personal level or they did Zillow, whatever time, energy, and money that they spent to drive that client to them.
Got it.
And then what happens is they refer it to the mortgage person. And then the mortgage person says, I can't help, we're short 50 points because of the credit scores. And what happens, the realtor just drops the ball. He or she drops the ball. What you got to do is you got to follow up, and I'll tell you why. I love loan officers. I'm going to tell you why right now. Who's the deal more important to, the realtor or the loan officer?
The realtor.
The realtor. The realtor is one that generates. The loan officer has 10 of those a day coming in. So it's a volume thing for the loan officer. If you generated the lead and the client doesn't have great credit, you got to be the one that follows up, that goes to the loan officer and says, you know what, how'd you make out? Credit wasn't good. Got it. What did you do as a loan officer? Did you give advice or did you refer them to the company that I'm using? Like, what's the next step? Oh, I just crumbled it, put it in the trash can. Okay, that's the realtor's opportunity to take that, warm refer it over to the right credit repair company, and then you start to build, Alex, as you build these pipelines. I have realtors with nice pipelines where, I don't even know what month it is, it doesn't matter. 6 months from now, all of a sudden, you have 4 or 5 people in that pipeline. how much commission you possibly potentially have of a pipeline of people that might come out and buy a house from you down the line.
That's great for renters too. A lot of renters may not even know what their credit is. Get to them early, get their credit checked out, and know if you have to do any homework before they start looking. Out of curiosity, when you're shopping for a car or you're shopping for a mortgage and you have 2 or 3 people pulling your credit score at the same time.
Yep.
I've heard different stories. I've heard you can't have multiple people pull your credit. I've heard as long as it's within the same field, like meaning mortgage or car, it's okay.
It's a dangerous thing to go down. Technically, there are different types of categories for each inquiry. There's an auto inquiry, there's a mortgage inquiry, there's a credit card inquiry. The problem with that is if that bank doesn't label it as an auto inquiry and then they send the information into the credit bureaus, technically you can have unlimited amount of inquiries if it's the same category in a 30-day period. So if you go into a car dealership and they label it correctly, you can have 30 inquiries and 30 days should count as one. So what you're hearing is absolutely correct. The problem why you don't want to do that is if PNC doesn't say PNC Auto and it just says PNC, the credit bureaus go, I don't know who this is. And then all of a sudden 30 inquiries is 10 inquiries and that trick didn't work and your scores go way down.
There you go.
So you got to be careful with that.
All right, I love it. Carl, a couple things.
Last
thing. One, where can they find you? And I always end with a book, podcast, or TED Talk recommendation for the audience.
Do all my dirty work. Credit.Carl. Send me a DM. That's where it's going down. Credit.Carl on Instagram. Not as much on Facebook anymore. Right.
Okay. And then what about a book that that you could recommend to the audience?
You asked a lot of good questions. You didn't stump me. I don't know if you've ever had this question, but I'm under the influence of Carl right now. I have such clarity and such purpose and where I'm going with my goals and my targets that I'm crushing daily. And I used to be in this routine where, it was Ed Milet and those type of guys where I would just listen to their podcast and Grant Cardone, and I got away from that because I was like, I don't want to be influenced by anyone other than what I have going on right now, which I love. So I don't know if that's it's just the right answer from me. I got no one's book, I got no one's podcast but me.
There you go. And you do have your own podcast.
I do have my podcast.
Street Cred, right?
The Power of Credit.
Oh, the Power of Credit. And don't you have Street Cred too?
Street Creds are just interviews that I just harass people in Miami. Check that out.
There you go. Carl, my friend, thank you so much. I'm going to turn on any parting words for the audience before we go.
Got it. All right. Yeah, subscribe to the podcast, The Power of Credit.